Hi.
Hi.
First, thank you for hosting us. Thank you for giving us this opportunity. Couvent Rouge is actually bears the French translate name of its village. The village is named Der al-Ahmar. The Der meaning the convent, Ahmar is the red color. So Couvent Rouge actually started as a complement to the cooperative, whose aim was to substitute the cannabis plantations in Der al-Ahmar and to transform them into vine. Our region, as probably you know it, Nest, the temple of Bacchus, god of wine, Roman god of wine. So this region is now only reviving what it used to do best. We are only the first generation of winemakers. We are a very modern winery. We have a very modern philosophy and trying to revive what this region of the world used to produce best.
Voilà. Great. Yes, no, I've been to the winery when we filmed, when Fauzi of Domaine de Tourelle was there. So we saw the vineyard as well. You know, it is in the film as well, your Grenache Blanc and Grenache Noir.
Well, honestly, we try new varietals every year because we are a first generation of winemakers. We don't really know what are the best varietals for our climate that suits it best. We have an altitude varying between 1,000 meters, reaching almost 2,200 meters altitude above sea level. So, and we have more than 300 sunny days a year. We have a very dry climate. So we have very specific conditions, I may say. And for us, since wine production hasn't existed for the past, I would say, 400 years, we don't really know what suits this region best. And we are every year planting new varietals. We did beautiful results with Syrah, Cabernet Sauvignon, Tempranillo, Carmenère, Arénard Noir, also on the whites with Viognier mainly. But we really are discovering our terroir and we are sharing it with the world.
Excellent, excellent. Great. So I wanted to take a few steps back and just, how did you guys get interested in wine, you know, personally, like, you know, were you growing up, well, first of all, are you both born in Lebanon or?
We both are, but we both lived outside of Lebanon too. I mean, we have a diversity of cultures, I would say. Eddie is...
Yeah, I've spent a fair bit of time in Australia and California, actually, and that's how I got into wine, between California and the wine regions in Australia. And in my work, I work in technology, and just being around wine quite often pulled me into wine, and that journey sort of transformed into me going to UC Davis, studying enology and viticulture. And yeah, and through friends, that's how I met Charbel and Walid. And yeah, we've been, you know, complementing each other and working together on doing cool stuff. As Charbel said, we are young, new, with no pedigree into wine, ancestral pedigree, I should say. And yeah, trying to do cool creative stuff. And you can do that when you don't have a lot of history. You can experiment and do new things. So yeah, and Charbel, he can talk about how we got into wine.
On my behalf, I was born in Lebanon. I lived the biggest part of my life, but we also traveled to France during war. So I lived a part of my life in France. And this is where I went back to do, I actually studied, I did architecture with a master in product design here in Lebanon. But because of my interest towards my village, mainly before wine, because I wanted to help out in my village and start this project, I got attracted by wine, and I went to Bordeaux and I did an MBA specialized in the wine field, the wine executive MBA, and came back to establish Couvent Rouge. So it's more, wine has always been a passion for me, but it was more from away, since I was more into architecture, product design. That was my main professional activity. But wine has always been some kind of a magnet because it developed slowly, but now eventually that's my main focus.
Great. Yeah. Could you talk a bit about the Bekaa Valley then? Like, you know, because you're in a different terroir, if you will. Most of the wineries that I think most people have heard of are more in the southern or near Zahle, I guess, right?
Now, most of the Lebanese wineries are in the Bekaa Valley. To understand, in my opinion, all Lebanon is apt for vine plantation, from north to south, from the Batroun, the area that is directly on the coast, on the Mediterranean Sea, to the Bekaa Valley, that is an actual plateau between two chain of mountains being the Mont Liban and the Anti-Liban. The chain of mountains from south to north elevate, reaching the highest peak in the country, that is Ornat Sauda, reaching some 3,100 meters altitude. That's right behind our village. So going towards the north of the Bekaa Valley, you're gaining altitude and you're gaining a dry weather. Because in the southern part, where most of the wineries are today, you get much more rain than we do. And eventually you get much more pollution because you're closest to the city center, to the industry, etc. Our region is a bit of a forgotten region. It's a region that is actually pretty rich, but was made poor. And everybody here mainly plants tobacco, potato, or cannabis, or weed. So the livelihood over here is extremely difficult. People, most of them are extremely poor. And the wine culture, wine education, wine production was inexistent until the establishment of our cooperative in 1999. So also to know, I don't want to sound fanatic, but in Lebanon, everything is very related to religion in a way. And it is a Muslim region. Baalbek is 80 to 90% Muslim in its population. So that also affected the fact that there were no development of the wine production sector. But we, as Deir al-Ahmar, we are a small village of Christian people, a bit like the Gaule d'Astérix. So we are a small Christian village in the north part of the Bekaa Valley, and we started this production in this area of the Bekaa.
And Mark, three unique things to me about Deir al-Ahmar, you compare it to the rest of the Bekaa Valley. Altitude, low disease pressure because it's much drier than the rest of the Bekaa Valley, and it's no mistake that we're 10-minute drive from the Bechos temple. So these things combined really distinguish the cool nights here. Are, you're here in the middle of the day, you think, oh gee, it's scorching hot, but the sun sets and you need a jacket in the middle of summer.
You have nights that can drop up to 20 degrees between the day and the night. So I let you figure what would that do to the grapes. Taking shape, sun exposure, reaching 42 degrees during the day. So it's getting bigger, getting more sugar. And at night, dropping from 42 to 22, sometimes 20, 22 degrees. So it shrinks back. And that on the long term gives it an ideal maturity.
Interesting. Yeah, it sounds a lot like California in a way, that the nighttime.
With the altitude.
Right.
And the lack of rain.
And you get
the lack
some
of rain is very important as well. Because we have this highest chain of mountains behind us, separating us from the Mediterranean Sea. So the rain doesn't reach our region. It stops on the Cedar, on Psharre region, where it rains a lot. And in our region, you really get a few drops yearly. So this dry aspect really helps good consistency on the fruit.
There's, Mark, with my experience of Napa in California compared to Deir al-Ahmar, the acidity here is amazing. Like you can have grapes that are well ripe, extremely mature, but well protected by acidity. So low pH, very, very good acidity. And this is what allows us to have minimal intervention winemaking. So
exactly.
even our vineyards are organic certified, but even in the winery, we don't need to do anything that we do in California sometimes to, you know.
And once again, we're a first generation of winemakers. We're not pretending to be winemakers from father to son, etc. So our smart move, I would say, is to allow the terroir to speak for itself. We as human, our philosophy is to do a minimal intervention and to underline our characteristic, our terroir characteristics, and that's very important for us.
And so, I guess so. Since '99, you would say, is that when you started Couvent Rouge?
Was the establishment of the cooperative. It started with 4 farmers. Walid, who is not with us right now, but he's also the co-founder of Couvent Rouge. He was one of the first farmers in '99 to establish the shift from cannabis to vine. We established Couvent Rouge in 2010 because the idea came, we as farmers in the cooperative, we were selling our grapes to the biggest Lebanese wineries, and they were producing excellent quality wines out of our grapes. So we said to ourselves, why are we only selling raw material? Why not establish our own winery in the village? And that's why we gave it the name of the village, actually.
Great. So I'm wondering, since 2010, how has the kind of evolution of the winery been? Like, I mean, are you experimentation? Have you gotten past, what stage are you at right now?
Well, we discover every day, every year, every day, I would say. We are in continuous discovery. We ask ourselves questions. We get help from all around. You mentioned Fauzi earlier. Fauzi is a very close friend who helped us through all the way until today. He's still our technical consultant. We seek help from foreign consultancy. We always follow up new trends, try to follow up how our terroir is reacting to different varietals. And as we said, doing tests on different varietals every year. So we are really evolving, I would say, quite rapidly, because we started from nothing, but we started in a quite strong way because we have a village behind us. It's not like a private entity, Eddie, Walid, and Minds. We're not doing a small batch production because we are wine passionates. We found vine grape and wine to be a solution to allow this region, our village, to revive. And then passions evolved and developed, and each day we learn even more, from the ground to the winemaking to the different process. Last year we started the Pétillant Naturel, the PetNat. It's a first in Lebanon, and it was something really marvelous. We did great results with it, and it keeps on going every year. I mean, until this year, from 2010 until 2019, for us, that we were able to reach the blend of our rosé. We were experimenting year after year, trying to find the right balance, the right varietals, etc. So it's a lifetime questioning, I would say, and experimentation and learning. So
having, as Charbel said, the whole village behind us is amazing. I mean, imagine you live in Sacramento. You have all Napa. Napa is too big of an example, but Sacramento, and there's one winery in Sacramento, and you have all these vineyards and farmers that are willing to plant anything you want and give you the best grapes that you want to produce the wines that you want. And that's there at Ahmar. We started when we started with Couvent Rouge. This is a white, rosé, and a red. And over the last few years, we've given birth to Petit Couvent, which is that's where we've allowed ourselves to insert some of the indigenous Lebanese varieties into the wines. So Abaide, Fayfihi, Abaide in the white example, and then Fayfihi in the rosé. We also, you can talk about the Racine.
Yeah, definitely. Racine is still under process. It's our chateau. It's our high-end product. We started it, well, it took us 5 years to reach eventually what we want. And we started the production with only 1 barrel, 300 bottle production. So it's a collector's item. It's a very limited production. It's a monocepage of Syrah on the red, and it's a monocepage of Viognier on the white. The Syrah is aged for 24 months in French oak barrels, and the white one is aged for 6 months. And it's really a work in progress. Once again, it's a lifetime achievement. It's a wine that we could eventually taste in 40 years to see where it led us. Of course, follow its evolution, but to really understand where we stand, it's only the second generation that will follow us that will know where we were. I mean, that's the beauty of wine as well. It's something that lives on from a generation to another. And we today are only putting the first stones of this project.
Great. So yeah, though that's it's fascinating to see your kind of progress, because life goes on for you guys, and the question, I guess, what I'm getting at is that there have been many setbacks in recent years, and especially, and the Beirut explosion was, I guess, maybe the culmination of many things. And I'm wondering, is there a kind of, how do you stay so resilient, I guess, in the face of all of this?
Can I start with that, and then I'll give it to Charbel to end. What happened in Beirut is on the 4th is devastating. Unfortunately, let's compare ourselves to a grape. We've become somewhat tolerant and disease resistant, unfortunately. And leading up to the explosion, there were many events that cascaded that sort of, it's like a ramp. So it was the beginning with the Thawra, the revolution taking place, then the lira devaluation, and then COVID, then this massive tragic event that happened on the 4th. And it wasn't just all of a sudden, we're born with, or we existed with tragedy. It was really an event, and unfortunately, how they played out sort of made this tolerant and resistant, unfortunately. And now, post-explosion, post 4th of July, of course, business has been dramatically impacted, and maybe Charbel can talk about that.
Well, you said, how can we still be so resilient? I think we have no choice, honestly. I mean, it's not something, like Eddie was saying, it's not something that came out of the blues. We've been living, I mean, back in the 90s after our civil war, it's warlords who took over, and corruption never stopped since then. And it was obvious that it was a time ticking bomb, and it was gonna reach its explosion. Now, unfortunately, it literally exploded, and it killed our city center. And honestly, I think we're not realizing yet. For us now, we are so submerged in our work, in the harvest, in the winery, that we refuse to look at reality. But it's there, and this is what happened. And honestly, I think this is, for us, it's a war. What we're doing is a fight. We're not holding guns. We're not going to the front, but to be able to produce wine in the Bekaa Valley, in the north of the Bekaa Valley, in the Baalbek region, and to export Lebanese wine abroad, that's our war, that's our fight. We already knew, once we came into it, we already knew it was a fight that was quite difficult to win, honestly. Most of my friends were like, what are you doing, investing in Lebanon, and where? In Baalbek. I mean, if you want to invest in Lebanon, go to the city center at least, but you go to a left space of a three world country. I mean, Lebanon is already way behind, and then this region of Lebanon is probably the most abandoned region, I would say. So it's really, it was I think, illusional to start a project here, and yet we started it. We decided to go through it, and we decided to start this fight. And well, we won't stop it. I mean, for us, it's a sacrifice. It's a first generation sacrifice that will lead for the second and the third. Once again, we are establishing. We know we are not going to see the fruit of our project. I mean, we will be happy to, but we are realistic, and we know we are only establishing for the generations ahead.
Interesting. Yeah. No, I mean, it's interesting how you speak of your making wine as a kind of a war, and you know, it's what a lot of our film is about, and you know,
it is true. Your film, your title tells it all, and this is exactly our situation. For us, it was either we get guns and we go to the front and start a war, like literal war, or we find that we will lose 100% because we haven't been growing on a war education nor on guns. I personally don't know anything about guns, and I don't care about it. So for us, it was we had more chances to win our educational, our cultural war than to get into a real war. And obviously, this is why we went for that choice, I guess.
It was determination. All of us have lost friends in the last couple of weeks, and lost neighbors, and lost loved ones, or been touched one way or another through a story or someone we know. So that determination to carry on.
A part of us exploded, all of us. If we were directly affected or not, we all are Beirut. I mean, we already are a very small country. And if you haven't lived in Beirut a part of your life, at least you've been there and you know people, and you know how Lebanon is. So we literally lost a part of ourselves. Hopefully it will be a turning point. That's the only thing we can now, I guess, hope for. So for a better future.
We almost literally lost the container as well. The morning, the morning of the explosion.
It was in the port, you mean?
Yeah, even, I mean, we have relatives that got wounded in the blast, people, our drivers, our restaurants, our friends. I mean, there are more than 120 restaurants and bars that were destroyed in Gemmayzeh and Mar Mikhael, that were our clients and friends. And you know, in Lebanon, you don't do business without developing a friendship, a relationship. It's a small country, and this is how we do it. So all of them became literal family members, friends of ours, and I mean, their loss is our loss. So yeah, it's very difficult to cope, I guess.
Right. Wow. Yeah. No, I mean, it's crazy. Just, yeah. I mean, hard to imagine for anyone who hasn't been there, or even who has been there. I wanted to also talk about that your winery is in the north part of Bekaa, where you were very close to our sale, weren't you? Like,
we are. We can see them. I mean, yes, during the Syrian war, most of it we could hear, see, eventually testify what was happening. Not in details, we wouldn't know what was exactly happening, but yes, especially that this region, as I said earlier, is quite empty, I would say. There's no real industry, no excess of habitation. So 15 kilometers are like nothing. You hear them as if it was your neighbor or in your region. So when it was intense, yes, we could live, we could feel, I would say, the disputes.
Wow. Wow. And I also wanted to talk a bit about you've also looked at other regions of the Middle East for wine and viticulture making. Can you talk a bit about that? And I mean, you know, we've Domaine de Barjalous, which is in Latakia in Syria. We've spoken a bit with them, but we're fascinated to hear about what kind of projects.
Of Eddie's specialization, I'll leave it to him.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I'll just pick up where you ended with Arsal. I think it was around the 28th of July 2017. We had an event, which is in a small town called Msharfi next to the winery. They do an event at the end of July every year. It didn't happen this summer because of COVID. And as we left that evening and we were driving away, we were just seeing all this lightning in summer over the Lebanese-Syrian mountains. And that's when we really realized that ISIS have come so close to the town. And it was, I can't forget that day as I was driving home. Look, there's a lot of well, not a lot is an understatement, it's quantified. There's over 1 million Syrian refugees in Lebanon. And through these, through their existence and conversations, you learn about another terroir, another region. And I did, and I was, history talks about also the Romans and wine in Syria. And I really wanted to understand a lot more about the regions. There are, I think, 4 wine growing regions in Syria that have, and one specifically that has a lot of winemaking potential, and that's Sweida. That's in the southern part of Syria. It's a volcanic mountain that's perched at 1,700, 1,800 meters. It's a wine growing region. It's like a mini Deir al-Ahmar, much smaller though. That they're really stuck in, say, 100 years back, that it's all indigenous varieties. It's just local varieties that they grow there. And they do make wine, and they do make a lot of arak, and Syrians drink a lot of arak. There's a lot of alcohol consumption in Syria. And yeah, we went there, Walid, I, and a Syrian friend, Abdallah Rishi. We went there in 2018, 24th of July, 2018, thinking it's safe. And yeah, we've done a lot of research, and we ended up in Sweida. The night that the following morning after we arrived in Sweida, ISIS took over the town, killed 240 people, took 30 hostages, kids and women, and just, it was a mass suicide explosions. It was horrendous. I haven't been through something like that since the civil war here. So yeah, it was quite nerve-wracking, but we managed to escape, get out of Sweida the second day. But we were determined to go back to Syria and understand the winemaking potential of that region. And we did after things settled down, and a few months later, and I think I did again in 2019. And Lebanon is amazing. I think everything is going our way in our elevation, our dryness, our macroclimate, our diversity, our food culture. And I think the same can happen in some regions in Syria if the war debates there. So it's just fascinating. It was another region. I just really wanted to gain experience. I've been to many parts of the world, many wine growing regions, and I thought, hey, why not Syria? It's very close, let's try it. But unfortunately it ended up miserably.
Wow. What an experience. I mean, and eye-opening in many ways. I mean, for place you don't hear about things like that. It's fascinating. At this point, I wanted to open it up. If Bart, do you have any questions? Or let me see here. I'm just looking at the chat questions here.
Some research with regards to the PetNat. Can you elaborate a little bit on the PetNat and the fact that you, as the first Lebanese winemakers, entered the sparkling wine in the Méthode Ancestrale? How did you guys come up with the idea?
I'm gonna start and I'll leave you. To be totally honest, to start, we're not the first to enter the sparkling. Méthode Champenoise was already produced by other colleagues, by other wineries, but we decided to go with the ancestral method, with the natural method. And for us, well, it was mainly for Eddie. in order. I guess he's coming from an American culture background, and he still goes back and forth to the US and follows up trend, I guess, more than us, who we are more buried in our soil, our agriculture, and our dry wines, I would say. He came to us and he was like, guys, we should try this. I mean, and we did, because we honestly, as I said earlier, we are eager for knowledge, for new things, for trials. I would say we don't stop doing them. So for us, it was a must, and eventually a beautiful success, unexpected success. But I'll let Eddie give more details about it.
Yeah, so whenever I'd be in the US, we'd be doing tasting, we'd be in restaurants, we'd be showing our wines off. You'd always see, you know, the Pâte Nat on the menu somewhere. And I've been drinking it for some time, and I know it existed, know the various sparkling wine methods, and I'm like, this could be. We have very, very floral grapes. We have the know-how. We have the eagerness to try things that are new, and I thought, yeah, why not? I don't have all the luxury to be in Champagne or some part of northern Italy to try their traditional methods, which are expensive to make, require a lot of machinery and disgorging, you know, automatically. And I thought Pâte Nat, I like the naturalness of Pâte Nat. I like the simplicity of making the wine. I like the ability to be able to talk about something that's a first in our region with the method that we're trying, and the coolness of it, and the trendiness, frankly, and how it's catching fire with the new generations. So that was, and we wanted to give it the local essence, and that's why you see the Baalbek temple of Venus on the bottle. So it's marrying all these things together.
What do they serve it with in the States? If you say they're putting it on the menu as aperitif or dessert?
Dessert, aperitif. Ours is dry, so it's bone dry. But because this wine is made with yeast in the bottle, so the fermentation finishes in the bottle, and you really trap it with the crown cap. All that fruitiness, the floralness of the yeast as well as the grapes ends up staying in the wine, and it just shows off later. And yeah, so it gives the perception that it's sweet, but it's not. It can be served as a as a dessert wine, but it's really not. So we're finding different spectrums of its consumption. And in Lebanon, we are actually, all of us are really surprised about how well it did in Lebanon. Extremely surprised. So, and you know, Lebanon is a very, I would say, a conservative traditional country. And I was worried about serving a wine bottle without a cork, right? It's different, right? It's like a beer bottle. It's a different approach, and we're pleasantly surprised with the reception.
Nice.
Sounds go very well with a Lebanese meze course on a hot summer day. It sounds like a great substitute for.
Get you a few bottles, Mark, and Bud.
I actually participated on the small contest on your website, so I'm still hopeful that I will be the winner. The guy who responded yesterday, that was I. Okay, I have another question. Actually, what I heard is that, and this is really moving, I find, is that you guys are like working for sort of heritage. You say you're building up something that goes on for the next generation, which is a beautiful image. Would you say that you are making wines for next generation as well? I mean, wines meant to age, or
Definitely.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, well, definitely. As Eddie was introducing a bit our range earlier, we started our production with Couvent Rouge. That is our main cheval de bataille, I would say. It's our main production, the Couvent Rouge standard. Afterward came the Petit Couvent. So Petit Couvent is more like easy to drink swimming pool wine, as I like to call it. So our first philosophy originally was to produce a wine. The Couvent Rouge, the red, is a wine that has a lifespan of some 15 years. It's been aged for 2 years in concrete tanks. And this is our standard, our entry-level wine. So we really wanted to produce something for the long term. Our entry level came in afterward, after a demand in the market. We understood, we were flexible. We understood that the market is demanding relatively cheap wines in order to expand the product, to enter in a better way the market. So we really started producing Petit Couvent as a market demand more than our philosophy. For us, our philosophy, it was Couvent Rouge and mainly Racine. Racine that you can see here. So Racine is our chateau. And this is for the moment only a collector's item. But we are working on developing it more and more. But in my opinion, we are growing in knowledge, we are growing in technique, and we are seeking that growing, that shape that is taking place. So yes, for us, it was eventually really, well, of course, we are producing wines for the people around us to drink, but we are producing something that we could eventually also take to the second generation. That's the aim.
And to chemically back what Charbel said, the wines, the grapes in our region are more tannic. We're talking red grapes here. So the ageability and the life of these grapes are much better than another region. Simply put, across the range of products.
Okay.
That presents another challenge, which is you really can't serve them 3 months, 4 months, 5 months after you've made them. But once they're ready to drink, they're delicious and they can live in your cellar for a long time.
Clear.
And they reflect the Lebanese identity. That's also very important for us, not only on the long term, but as qualitatively, it's very important for us not to be producing a Bordeaux, wannabe Bordeaux produced in Lebanon. It's very important for us to find our own varietals, to find, as I said earlier, what is adequate for our terroir, and so to underline it and to put it, to give it its importance. So when you taste Couvent Rouge, you taste north of the Bekaa Valley, you taste Lebanon, you taste Deir al-Ahmar. You have spices from our region, you feel our climate, you feel eventually our passion, as I would like to say. So you are really tasting a Lebanese wine and not a wannabe other country wine. We respect our French culture, and we really, for us, it's very important to underline it, and that's why we called it Couvent Rouge, because, you know, here in Lebanon, a lot of school, we were under a French mandate. A lot of schools are still French. As you can tell my accent, we are very French affected. So we are not shy of this French influence. On the contrary, we like it and we cherish it. But it's not a reason for us not to have our own identity, to take whatever we found appropriate from this French influence and to transform it into something Lebanese, with a French influence, but also with something very Lebanese running in our blood, in our veins, and maybe a different, like entering the Petnat. It's, for us, it's a very American influence that allowed us to go into this production. So it's important to have influence, but it's very important also not to imitate, but to create, to take from that influence and transform it into something very specific to us.
Clear. Maybe another one, and referring to the French influence that that you guys had, what is your position on the fact that, by my knowledge, but you can always contradict, by my knowledge, there is no such thing as a Lebanese AOP, or Appellation d'origine contrôlée. What is your guys' position on that?
There isn't none. Officially, there isn't none. And even the differentiation today in Lebanon is not geographical. Unfortunately, in my opinion, it should, because wines from Batroun are not less good than wines from the Bekaa. They are just different. They have a different terroir, a different quality of soil, different quantity of rain. So, and plus, you cannot plant the same varietals in Batroun that you will plant in the Bekaa. So these are main problems that you are facing in Lebanon. There is no mindset that is different. There is no real understanding of the sector. Unfortunately, our sector evolved on people passionate about wine, but with no background, wine background whatsoever. Like a person coming from medicine or any kind of exactly sector, but and not getting into the wine field, supposing that their passion for wine will suffice in order to produce, which is not the case. So a lot of mistakes and in my opinion, mistakes that got enracinated, that became part of their way of doing, not corrected mistakes. So that led, in my opinion, the sector to become relatively poor, not competitive on the international aspect. Because once again, if you don't know what you're producing, how could you attract somebody from Sweden, for example, or anybody from all around the world? If you are not aware of your capacity, of your production, of your taste, and etc., why would they be interested in what you're doing? So that was, in my opinion, a big problem in the wine sector. The wine sector is still a bit poor as I see it. And yes, an appellation, in my opinion, if not AOC or not necessarily imitate the French or the Italian. Our country is much smaller and fragmented in a different way, I would say. But we need, in my opinion, a system of appellation to differentiate and to understand better what we are doing.
And we would be the biggest winners of forming an appellation or a micro-region or whatever we end up calling it, DOCG, the Lebanese version of it, because through the cooperative, our grapes and wines are really local. I think we can pride ourselves with being one of the only wineries that sources their grapes from a single region, this region, and it's micro, even within our region, within Deir al-Ahmar, there are microclimates. So but we are ready for it. The cooperative is ready for it, the winery is ready for it. We would love Lebanon to move in that region. In that direction.
And what is the influence of the Union Vinicole du Liban?
UVL is, in my opinion, a good movement to allow all wineries to coordinate better. But unfortunately, like everything in the country, it's a bit taken to politics. Like the wine sector itself, like anything in a small country where politics and corruption take over everything. UVL was a good initiative, but when you come to the implementation, to the execution on the ground, it's a reflection of our political situation.
Okay, that's a pity. Okay. In the meantime, I saw that Silvana is hosting the session. Is that correct? Zoom is doing tricks with us.
Silvana, would you like to ask us any questions? Silvana, I hope your mum is okay. You're hearing, but you're probably not talking. You're muted. I hope your mum is better today. No, she's doing something else. She must be doing something else. Okay. Ooh, I'm very sorry to hear that. Okay, glad she's better. Okay. All right.
Mark is gone.
I think he is gone, and with that, I believe we are like following the strict schedule of more or less 45 minutes. But maybe Maya or Michel or someone else has other questions for the two gentlemen of Couvent Rouge.
I think we're good.
I think you are well. If Mark doesn't reappear, he gives me the honor as like the second in rank to thank you guys enormously. I've already enjoyed doing some research about your house. The story that you're telling is really confirming everything else what we heard about the Lebanese winemakers, your resilience, the fact that you are your comparison with the grapes, Eddie, is true. I mean, you become resilient at some point. Maybe that was put in a more negative way, but I find it fascinating. Always find it fascinating. And in the meantime, I see that Mark reappeared.
Thank you, Bart.
Mark, you're on. No, you're welcome. You're welcome.
I'm glad the conversation's going on. Right on. I don't know. Well, I guess we're getting close to our time, but I wanted to ask, it's the beginning of September. What are you guys, what's the state right now? Are you harvesting? Have you harvested? What's going on?
We already finished with the whites. We are harvesting one of our biggest harvests ever recorded in the history of Couvent Rouge. So we are quite proud of it. And at the same time, as I was saying a bit earlier, I think it makes us forget. We are working from like 4 in the morning till 10 at night. So it doesn't allow us to see the environment, the painful environment around us. So it allows us to forget and to concentrate on what is our daily work now. We have expecting some 1,000 tons of grapes all around the cooperative. So we are expecting at Couvent Rouge a harvest around 500 tons. So that's above our capacity, but I think we are doing well until now.
Wine yeast is crawling all over the winery. You can see it here on the camera. I can see a bit here. Can you see it, Mark?
Wow. All right. Well, yeah. So you're kind of in the middle of the storm, so to speak, of winemaking, at least.
Yes.
Keeping busy. Good to hear.
That's the only.
Well, thank you guys. Yeah.
Pleasure.
Well, thank you guys. And
talk about Couvent Rouge.
I'm sorry?
I said, thanks for giving us the chance to talk about Couvent Rouge.
Oh, yeah, very glad to, I hope to visit the winery, just whenever we can. And thank you guys. And well, good luck in the harvest.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, guys.
Cheers, guys.
Bye.
Talk to you soon. Bye-bye. Cheers.
Bye-bye.